My name is Eric Dalton, and I'm 34 years old. I work in cybersecurity for a mid-sized firm just outside of Denver. I'm the kind of guy who keeps to himself, pays his taxes early, and believes in fixing problems quietly instead of shouting them down. When I married Leela, I thought I was marrying into something warm, a family that would eventually see me for who I was. But from day one, I was never anything more than a tolerated outsider, and I learned the hard way that some families don't want to welcome you. They want to break you. They never said it outright, people like them don't. Instead, they used smiles like weapons, silence like punishment, and jokes that always landed just a little too hard. Her father once introduced me to his friends as Leela's little project, and her mother smiled like it was charming. Her brothers, they called me Mr. Soft Hands because I worked in IT and didn't swing hammers for a living. At first, I tried to laugh it off, then I tried to win them over. But eventually, I just started surviving family events the way you'd survive a thunderstorm, keep your head down and wait for it to pass. Leela was the only reason I kept trying. I loved her, still do, even if everything has changed now. She always told me to give them time. They're just protective, she said. They don't mean it. But she didn't see what I saw, the way her brothers only invited me to things if they needed tech help, the way her mother changed the subject every time I brought up our future plans, and how her father's voice always tightened when he said my name. Like it left a bad taste in his mouth. Still, I stayed patient. I showed up. I brought gifts to her mom on birthdays, helped her dad fix their garage door, and paid for dinner more times than I could count. I never asked for anything in return, just respect, just space to belong, but with them, I was always the outsider they had to tolerate. The first real red flag came the Christmas before last. We'd driven 3 hours to their cabin for a family gathering, and the moment I walked in, her brother Mason tossed me the keys to his truck and said, "Great you're here. Go pick up the beer." No hello, no handshake, just a chore. And when I got back, Leela's other brother, Josh, asked if I had finally gotten over that crying spell from Thanksgiving. The room laughed, everyone but me. Because there was no crying spell, they had just made it up, and everyone else decided it was funny enough to repeat. But Leela said it's just how they are. So I kept my mouth shut. Then came the weekend that would change everything, the invitation. Mason texted me saying the family was planning a guys-only bonding trip. Just me, the brothers, and their dad. Leela was thrilled. She said this was a huge step, that they finally wanted to include me. "They're trying, Eric," she said. "Just go and have fun." And for a moment, I believed her. I packed light, said goodbye with a half smile, and got into the back of Mason's truck that Friday morning. We drove for hours, cracking open drinks, blasting music, pretending like the past hadn't happened. I thought maybe things were changing. I didn't know I was being set up. I didn't know that within 24 hours, I'd be standing alone on the side of a desolate highway with no phone, no wallet, no way home, and not a single soul in that truck who ever intended to come back for me. But that's where this story really begins, because they thought they'd humiliate me for fun. They thought I'd crawl back, broken. They didn't know what I was capable of when I finally stopped giving them grace. And they definitely didn't expect what came next. We were 4 hours deep into the drive when I first felt it, that gnawing sense in the back of my gut that something wasn't right. I sat in the back seat of Mason's pickup, wedged between a half-deflated cooler and an old fishing rod, pretending to laugh along as they blasted music and shouted over each other. They were unusually friendly. Too friendly for a family that had spent years rolling their eyes every time I walked into a room. The sudden jokes, the backslaps, the "Hey, Eric, grab another beer," man. It felt off, but I told myself I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe Leela. I wanted to believe that maybe finally this trip really was a turning point. We stopped at a remote gas station somewhere between 2 counties, the kind of place with one flickering light, a bathroom key attached to a car tire, and dust on the snack shelves. Josh said they needed to grab something important from inside and told me to stay with the truck. Don't let anyone steal the bait, and Mason joked. They all laughed, left the engine running, and walked inside. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. I stepped inside the station to find it empty. No Mason, no Josh, no Dad. I jogged around the side of the building. The truck was gone. My heart dropped through the floor. Gone. At first, I thought they were pulling a prank. Maybe they were around the corner. Maybe this was just some dumb initiation, make the outsider sweat a little, then circle back laughing. So I waited. 30 minutes, then an hour. The sun sank lower. The gas station clerk locked the door and left with a nod, like this was the most normal thing in the world. And I stood there on cracked pavement with no wallet, no phone, no bag, nothing but the clothes on my back and the humiliation burning through my skin. It was only when I found the folded note under the cooler in the station's trash bin that I realized it wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. The note read, "Time to man up, city boy. Let's see how long you last out here. Don't worry, Leela thinks it's just a joke. She'll understand, eventually." There wasn't even a signature. Just those mocking words and the silence of the road. I sat on the curb that night as the stars came out, every second tightening the knot of betrayal in my chest. My in-laws had planned this, lied to my wife. Drove me hours away from home, dumped me like garbage and laughed about it. And my wife, did she know, or was she just another piece in their twisted game? A kind older couple in a rusted RV stopped hours later and let me borrow their phone. I called Leela. She picked up after a few rings. "Eric," she asked, already sounding half-ass. "Leap, everything okay?" I told her where I was, what happened, that her brothers and her father had left me too. 100 miles from home with nothing. There was a pause. Then she sighed. "You're kidding. Come on. You're overreacting. It's probably just a dumb prank. You know how they are." That's when the weight hit me full force. She knew, maybe not the details, but enough. She knew how they were, and still she excused it. I hung up. That night I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I slept on a bench behind the gas station with my jacket rolled into a pillow and my heart made of stone. The next morning, I found a trucker headed back toward the city and offered to help him unload at his stop if he'd give me a ride. He agreed. No questions. Just kindness, something I hadn't felt in over 48 hours. When I got home, Leela was sitting on the couch, eyes wide like I was the one who had done something wrong. "You're back already?" she asked, like I had ruined the joke by surviving it. I didn't answer. I just walked past her into the bedroom and closed the door behind me. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. They had abandoned me like I was disposable, and what hurt more, my wife was fine with it. I wasn't just hurt, I wasn't just humiliated, I was alone, but that's when it started. That slow burn in the center of my chest, the one that whispered not just get even, but get smart, because I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight fire with fire. I was going to burn them with the truth, and I already knew where to start. That Monday morning, I sat in my home office, staring at a blank screen. My duffel bag, the one I was supposed to take on the guy's trip, still sat untouched in the hallway. I hadn't unpacked because I hadn't been on a trip. I'd been on display, a target, a joke. The silence in the house was deafening. Leela was in the kitchen, humming like nothing had happened. I could hear her stirring coffee, clinking a spoon against porcelain, moving on like last weekend had been a weird little hiccup. Like me getting abandoned 200 miles from home was something I'd just get over. But I wasn't laughing anymore. I wasn't playing along. I opened my laptop and pulled up every text thread, every group chat, every photo from the last 2 years of family events. I needed to understand how long this had been going on. The thing about tech guys like me, we may be quiet, but we never forget and we keep everything. Cloud backups, email archives, encrypted drives. I had receipts. I just hadn't looked at them closely. Until now, the more I scrolled, the more I saw it clearly. This wasn't some random prank. This was a pattern. They had been undermining me, mocking me, and testing my boundaries since day one, and I'd let it happen. I made excuses, laughed off their digs, let Leela convince me that they were just rough around the edges. I was tired of being the good guy, the quiet husband, the outsider they could use for target practice. That weekend didn't break me, it woke me up, and once I started looking closer, things got even uglier. I found a group chat I wasn't supposed to see. Mason had added me by accident once when they were planning a surprise for Leela's birthday. He never removed me. Buried between memes and party logistics were messages like, "Bet Eric cries if we ditch him again, lol, city boy wouldn't last one night in the woods. Leela still thinks he's husband material, damn," and worst of all, a video. I clicked it with shaking hands. It was from the day they left me. Recorded after they abandoned me at the gas station. They were in the truck, driving off, laughing. Mason in the driver's seat, filming over his shoulder. "Let's see how long it takes him to realize we're not coming back. $5 says he calls his mommy." Leela had seen this, had she laughed too? No, I couldn't jump to conclusions, but I had to know. That night, I sat her down and asked straight, "Why didn't you come get me when I called?" She blinked like I was overreacting. Eric, it was just a joke. They weren't going to leave you forever. You take everything so seriously. So if I left you in the middle of nowhere for 24 hours without food, money, or a phone, you'd laugh it off. Her silence said it all. That's when I made the decision. I was done defending myself, done pleading for dignity from people who never wanted me to have it. If her family thought I was weak, if they thought they could break me for sport, they were about to see what a patient, methodical man could do when he stopped holding back. This wasn't going to be revenge. It was going to be exposure. Step 1, collect everything. Over the next few nights, I combed through everything: text threads, voicemails, screenshots. I began cataloging every incident, every cruel joke, every shred of evidence that proved this wasn't an isolated prank, but a sustained campaign to humiliate me under the excuse of family bonding. I downloaded the video Mason, posted in the group chat, and backed it up in multiple places. I started recording every conversation from that point forward, even the innocent ones. Not because I wanted to catch someone slipping, but because I knew how people behave when the truth corners them. They lie, and I wasn't going to let them lie their way out of this. Step 2, find their cracks. What scared men like Mason and his father wasn't confrontation, it was judgment. They wore their masculinity like armor, but cared deeply about appearances, about how they looked in front of their friends, their neighbors, their church. Especially their church. That's when the idea started forming. They humiliated me in front of each other. Now I'd show the world who they really were. But I wasn't going to scream it from rooftops. I was going to let their own words do the talking. I just needed one more thing. Proof that Mason and his father didn't just mock me, they mocked everyone, including the people who trusted them the most, and I knew exactly where to get it, because Mason had just invited me on another bonding trip. Fishing. Just the two of us. He thought I was still soft, still grateful for scraps. He had no idea I was already planning how to bury him with nothing but his own voice. When Mason texted me about the fishing trip, I stared at my phone for a long moment. Hey bro, just us this weekend. Make up for the last trip, you in? The audacity. He had the gall to act like nothing had happened, like he hadn't stranded me at a gas station hours from home and laughed about it with his dad and brother. Like I was just supposed to say, sure man, let's cast some lines and call it water under the bridge. But I said yes, not because I forgave him, but because I knew exactly what kind of man he was. Arrogant, reckless, the kind of guy who ran his mouth when he felt safe. And I was going to give him just enough rope to hang himself with. This trip wasn't going to be about bass and beer. It was going to be about truth, cold, clean, and recorded. The night before we left, I went online and bought a voice recorder the size of a flash drive. Crystal, clear audio, long battery life, USB compatible. It clipped right under my collar, small enough that even if Mason got suspicious, he wouldn't find a thing. I tested it 5 times, practiced casual conversations to make sure I didn't sound tense. If this was going to work, I had to be smooth, quieter than the engine hum, calmer than the river current. The next morning, he pulled into my driveway at 6 sharp, honking like we were still friends. I grabbed my bag, slid the recorder into place, and got in. The truck smelled like bait, sweat, and bad decisions. Man, it's good we're doing this. He said, Leela said you've been tense. Gotta loosen you up. Tense. I gave a little laugh, like the comment didn't dig at my spine. Yeah, been a crazy few weeks. He nodded, sunglasses already on, chewing sunflower seeds like it was any other weekend. Like he hadn't shattered the foundation of my marriage with one cruel prank. We drove 3 hours to a remote cabin by the lake one his family had used for years. No cell service, no neighbors, just miles of silence and tree line. Perfect for the kind of confessions I was hoping to get. Once we arrived, we unpacked and hit the water fast. He handed me a rod, threw the cooler in the boat, and started cracking jokes like nothing had ever happened. I played along, for now. 2 hours in, the small talk started fading. The sun was high, the lake still. Mason had downed 2 beers. That's when I leaned back in the boat and said at the bait, You ever feel bad about leaving me at that gas station? He laughed full belly laugh, no guilt in it at all. Oh, come on, he said. You made it back, didn't you? Built character. Still, I said, keeping my voice flat. You guys went hard. Thought Leela was gonna be pissed. He snorted. Nah, she thinks you're a big boy. Knew you could handle it. Then he leaned in slightly and said the thing I'd been waiting for. Honestly, man, we've been trying to shake you up since day one. You walk around like you're better than us, college boy. Tech job, soft hands. Thought maybe a little survival trip would put hair on your chest. I didn't flinch. Just nodded. Guess that explains the group chat stuff too. He paused. What group chat? I met his eyes, the one where you bet on how long it'd take me to break. His jaw tensed for a second, then he smiled again, shrugging. Man, you're too sensitive. That stuff's just jokes. You think we actually hate you. You left me in the middle of nowhere with no money or phone. He stared at the lake for a second. Fine, maybe we took it too far. But come on, Eric, you act like you didn't have it coming. You always make Leela feel like we're beneath you, like you're embarrassed of the family. That was the moment. The switch, because under all the fake laughs, that was the truth, the resentment, the reason they kept chipping away at me, because I'd never fit into their crude, small, world idea of masculinity, because I didn't drink to blackout, didn't mock strangers, didn't treat women like property. That scared them. You ever think about how Leela would react if she heard you say all this? I asked, my voice low. Mason laughed again, nervously this time. You're not recording this or anything, right? I smiled. Why would I do that? He bought the bluff, hook, line, and sinker. The rest of the trip was a blur, more drinks, more off-hand comments, more little admissions about the way they'd treated me behind closed doors. Mason didn't know it, but he was burying himself with every word. When we got home Sunday night, he bumped me in the driveway like we'd just had a great weekend. See, he said, told you this would clear the air. I smiled. It did. Then I walked inside, locked the door, and uploaded the entire audio file to 3 separate cloud backups. I sat at my desk and listened to the whole thing, every laugh, every insult, every damn word. I had everything I needed now. Next Sunday, his pastor would hear it all. Sunday morning arrived quiet and gray, the kind of morning that made everything feel heavier. I woke up early not because I had somewhere to be, but because I couldn't sleep. The plan was set, everything was ready, all that remained was one final, irreversible step. Leela had already left for brunch with her sister. Mason and his parents were at church like they were every Sunday without fail. Suits, polished smiles, handshakes, and holy nods, the same church where Mason led the men's group, gave short devotionals, and pretended to be the kind of person you could trust your life with. This was the part he didn't understand. The part he never could understand. He'd spent years acting one way in the pews and another in real life, assuming the two worlds would never collide. But I was going to make sure they did. I dressed in jeans and a flannel, grabbed a plain envelope, and slid the flash drive inside. On it was the full recording from our fishing trip, every mocking word, every self-righteous joke, every cruel admission that Mason had made with a beer in his hand and a smirk on his face. On the outside of the envelope, I wrote one line in neat block letters, for Pastor Ray Private. Please listen fully. I drove to the church but didn't park in the lot. Instead, I pulled up a block away, cut the engine, and walked. I knew the layout. I'd been to a few services with Leela early on, back when I was still trying to make peace with her family. I remembered the wooden donation box by the door, the one used for tithe envelopes and prayer cards. People dropped things in without thinking, without question. When I got there, the lobby was quiet. Sunday school had already started. Most of the congregation was seated. The hall was empty, just a few ushers at the other end, too far to notice me. I slid the envelope into the box. That was it. No confrontation, no chaos, just truth, sealed and delivered. I walked back to the car and sat behind the wheel, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from something colder. Resolve. I didn't want revenge. I wanted exposure, and what better place for a mask to come off than in the one place Mason claimed to be pure. I didn't hear anything for a few days. I figured maybe the pastor hadn't gotten it, or maybe he'd heard the recording and decided to stay out of it. But then Wednesday came, and everything started to crack. That morning, Mason didn't post his usual gym selfie. No memes, no midweek motivation, quotes. By afternoon, his social media was completely locked. Comments turned off, friends list hidden, the silence was loud. Leela got home from work and tossed her bag down with a huff. Something's going on with Mason. Oh, I said, keeping my voice flat. He got pulled from leading the men's breakfast this weekend. Apparently the pastor said it's under review. What does that even mean? I shrugged. Maybe someone finally called him out. She gave me a sharp look. You didn't do anything, did you? I didn't answer, just stared at her, not with anger, but with the weight of someone who'd been doubted too many times. She held my gaze, her mouth opening slightly before she turned away. By Friday, it wasn't just the church. People from their community groups started distancing themselves. Mason's posts about family and faith stopped. The pastor, a man known for giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, had called a special meeting for the men's leadership team and personally asked Mason to sit it out. That night, I got a text from unknown. You think you're clever. Hope it was worth it. No name, no punctuation, but I knew who it was. Mason was unraveling. I didn't reply, because it was worth it. See, Mason thought power came from volume, from making fun of someone loud enough that no one questioned it. He thought legacy was built on reputation, not character. He thought he could humiliate me in private and keep shaking hands in public, all while wearing the armor of faith. But I knew something he didn't. You don't need to scream to destroy someone. You just need to let their words speak in a room they thought was silent. And now Mason's words were ringing in the one place he thought was his sanctuary. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't go online. I didn't need to. Truth has a way of spreading, especially in places where masks are worn every Sunday. By Sunday morning, the silence had become deafening, not just online, but inside my home. Leela hadn't spoken more than a few sentences to me since the night I gave her that look, the one that said, I could say more, but I won't. But something in her had shifted. She was watching me now, not with suspicion like before, not like when she thought maybe the rumors were true, but with uncertainty, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. She sat at the edge of our bed, scrolling through her phone. I don't get it. She muttered, he's not answering anyone, not mom, not even the guys from church. I kept folding laundry. They canceled his men's group talk. Ray said Mason needed to take time and reflect. Reflect on what? What happened? Still, I said nothing. That was the thing about truth. Once it slips through the cracks, it doesn't stop. It leaks, it stains, and you can't unhear what's been said in a man's own voice. I knew the recording had done its job. I didn't gloat. I didn't sit her down and say, I told you so. I didn't wave around the flash drive or tell her the full play, because that would have made me like him, a man who needed to be seen, to be praised, to be right at all costs. I just let the consequences speak louder than anything I ever could. That evening, Leela came into my office holding her phone. She looked shaken, her face pale, eyes wide. Heard something today, she said quietly, at church. I looked up. Yeah, Pastor Ray said some audio was shared about Mason. Stuff he said about you, about all of us. I nodded once. She blinked. Did you? What do you think? Her shoulders dropped, not with defeat but with relief, as if something inside her had finally clicked. You were trying to protect me. Always, I said. She sat down slowly, staring at the floor. I don't know why I didn't see it. I believed him. I let him make me think you were someone else. There was no venom in her voice, just guilt, real aching guilt. And I didn't need to rub it in because she was already doing it to herself. I'm sorry, Eric. The words landed heavy, honest. I nodded again. I know. For a moment, we just sat there. Two people who'd almost been torn apart by a man who wore righteousness like a costume. And in that silence, I felt something settle, something final. Mason hadn't just lost control of the narrative, he'd lost the very identity he used to manipulate people. He wasn't the golden son anymore. The church elder, the respectable family man, he was just another mask ripped clean off. Word traveled fast in tight-knit congregations. By the following week, the pastor had made a vague public statement during service about rebuilding trust and practicing humility. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew. His father stopped showing up to Sunday services altogether. His mother came alone once, then never again. From what I heard, the whispers got louder. Some men left the group entirely. Others quietly started supporting people they'd once dismissed. The tide was turning, not with fireworks, but with quiet justice, and the best part, I never raised my voice, never fought dirty. I didn't punch, threaten, scream, or cry. I didn't rally anyone or post online or try to ruin him the way he tried to ruin me. All I did was wait and record, because sometimes the most powerful move isn't vengeance, it's exposure, letting the enemy be his own downfall. Leela eventually asked me for the full story. I told her everything, the fishing trip, the recorder, the plan. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. Then, without a word, she hugged me, tight, like she was trying to erase every moment she'd ever doubted me. We didn't bring Mason's name up again. We didn't have to. He was gone from our family, from our gatherings, from our lives. What he poisoned, I had cleansed with truth, and when it was all over, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt free.